On this Monday, June 8th, 2020. Before the break, I did say I will be having the Chief Operating Officer Ventures and Business Development of the NNPC join me, Roland Ewubare. I saw him actually before the break. Good morning to you, sir, and welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Nancy. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I hear you very clearly, yeah.
Okay, I think we'll need to take a break to fix my audio because I can't hear you. Okay, I think I can hear you now.
You hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. So yes, good. Let's get straight to the business. I will start from the OPEC Plus meeting that was just done on Saturday, extension of production cut till this month end, because earlier, I think the meeting they had in April, they did say that at the end of June, that's June 30th, a new production cut was set in, but OPEC Plus, including Russia, Iraq, and all of the other countries agreed to extend that oil production cut. Is this about oil producers feeling that the oil markets will fall again?
Thank you, Nancy, for having me on your program. So as you well know, the dynamics around the pricing of oil has been in flux for a while, primarily as a result of the coronavirus pandemic and associated issues around global demand, the supply glut in the market, absence of storage. So this bowl of wax makes a conversation around pricing particularly interesting. Now, your specific issue around the extension and rollover of the 9.7 million barrels per day cut, I think it's safe to assume that there's still some measure of tentativeness in the global market. Yes, many countries are easing the COVID-19 lockdowns, but we still have a glut of inventory in terms of if you compare that to what the market can absorb right now. You still have plenty of oil in tank farms, on ships. So the equilibrium we need to progress on the original plan from the last OPEC meeting, I don't think we have that in sync just yet. So it makes sense as a prudent proposition to keep things the way they are now, because we certainly are not out of the woods. Life is a lot better than it was in April when our brothers in Canada were willing to give away oil for free, and you had -0 type prices. But today at $43, we are easily we doubled what we were in mid-April, and that's good for the market. It's good for Nigeria, and it's certainly a proposition we hope will hold. And the belief is that we'll probably see some additional increase before the end of the year.
The question is, because there's been this controversy, and not really controversy, the concern and worry around oil prices tanking and how much we spend for cost of production of our oil, that why can't it be lowered than what it is right now? I've heard even from different ministers. Ibe Kachuku sometime last year, I think I interviewed him sometime last year when he was the Minister of Petroleum Resources State. He did say that the idea, or perhaps the target, is a $15 production for oil for the country. I've also heard, I think this minister and as well as the GMD and NNPC, they say perhaps about $17 US. The question is, oil prices tanking, forget what it is right now, about $43, just like you said, is not a huru yet. But how much do we use to produce oil in this country?
So that's a very good question, Nancy, because if you're talking about a low price regime, the only way you then make money is to contain your costs. So it's an excellent question. What it costs us to produce in Nigeria varies by terrain. All right. So what we spend with our deep water operators is certainly different from what we spend with the operators who operate primarily on land. Is different from what those who operate in the swamps and creeks spend. But on average, the national aspiration that we've set for ourselves in NNPC, and that's what the GMB Medicare has been harping on over and over, is to keep our costs at sub $10 a barrel. We need to be at $10 or below on average. So there'll be the occasional guy who will do at 12, at 15, but then there'll be people who do at 7. When you then average out, we want to be at 10, so that if for any reason we experience sort of price shock we went through in April, we're able to at least remain in business and deliver, significant amount of cash on a monthly basis to the Federation to fund the national budget and to sustain the states that rely on FAC allocations to meet their bills. The issue around cost of production, like I've said in other platforms, is pretty. It's complicated on one level, but it's also very simple on another level. All right. Where do our costs come from? What are the drivers of the costs? Our environment is a major issue. You've got, the restiveness in the Niger Delta, vandalism of assets, and all that. Because of that environment, we then have had to put, when I say we, NNPC and our operator partners, have had to put structures in place to ensure that we're able to continue production. So if you need to move a work crew to a site, you have the whole support of JTF military personnel. If you're doing work offshore on water, it's as if you need a whole navy to support you. All of those activities add layers of cost to what should ordinarily be a low-price environment, given the abundance of resources that we have in the Nigerian basin. But NNPC, I can tell you, is determined to nail down costs, and we've put in different measures. And we're working.
I was coming to that. That what are the measures being taken by the NNPC to reduce the costs of production, both onshore and offshore? Because it's a no-brainer right now that we're passing through a pain, and the pandemic has made the pain severe. So there should be measures put out by your organization to be able to do that.
Yeah. So we're engaging our partners, and we're coming up with different initiatives around optimization and how do I put it now? A deeper level of collaboration amongst the partners. So are there services, for example, that we can share? All right. So instead of producer A running its own logistic operation, its own security operation, is it possible for us to sort of have an alignment of interest so that economies of scale, you drive down costs? That conversation is ongoing, and we're seeing some results. Now, discretionary spending, we have nailed down completely, all right? And that used to be a significant aspect of cost. There's a big chunk around staff and personnel costs, which we really can't touch because of our environment. I mean, we already have high enough unemployment. We don't want to go about, laying off people and increasing, this societal burden around unemployment. So for those elements that are discretionary, we certainly are taking major action to bring down costs. I'll give you a simple one. Contracting, for example. We've told all our vendors that, every contract we have with them now has to be renegotiated. And we're looking at 30 to 40% reductions in terms of what we pay people for work they've done for us going forward. There's been some resistance, but guess what? This is just the reality we face, and there's no going back on that endeavor.
Oh, you seem to be bringing me out of my den with with things you're saying, because the next question I wanted to ask is about that contracting cycle. Which has also been fingered as one of the reasons for high cost of production. Since your organization is concentrating on that now, bringing down contracts, would that not also hamper optimization? Since you said a lot of people have been kicking against that.
No, it won't. And the conversation around the contracting cycle, right, is cast in historical perspective, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. So we had a period of 5-6 years in this country where the governance structure for the award of major contracts in upstream space totally was in disarray. All right. So you couldn't get the final approvals you needed from the side of the government. The operators were then kept in limbo. What should ordinarily take 6-7 months, drags on for 2-3 years. But it was a finite period. Now I agree that period is what has now come to define the upstream space around contracting cycle. But over the past 4-5 years, Nancy, we've been working hard to bring down, to shrink the contracting cycle. I was the GGM of NAPIMS for 2 years. I ran NAPIMS for 2 years. And in my time, that was one of the elements of my agenda that I focused on with a lot of precision. By the time I left NAPIMS, Nancy, we were able to run major tenders, start to finish, in 6 months. And that's more than fair in any environment at all in the world. Yeah. So the contracting cycle story is an old one. It's not a big problem for us in today's environment. We're able to manage our contracting cycle a lot better.
Let's talk about investment challenges in this industry. Some of the challenges, or perhaps one of the major ones, is because of the Petroleum Industry Bill. The last assembly tried to break that Petroleum Industry Bill into 4. The host communities bill, the administration, what else? The PIGB. What am I leaving out? Okay, I got 3/4. So
the one around fiscal.
Fiscals, yes. So why are we still lagging to pass this fundamental bill? Because we're seeing the lag in investment in that sector.
Absolutely critical question you're asking, because like you well know, I mean, you're one of the leading anchors in the business space in Nigeria. Businessmen, investors, folks who have capital, all right, do not invest where there's uncertainty. It's just, that's the first principle of investment. Folks want clarity. If I bring $1 into Nigeria to invest in oil and gas, what are the assurances I have? And those assurances have to be codified in legislation to tell me about, they'll give me some sort of comfort around my ability to get an investment return that makes sense and that's competitive when I compare Nigeria to other economic environments where I have an opportunity to invest. So until we put a comprehensive piece of legislation, all right, and it's up to us to decide how we want to do it. We can have one bill that covers everything. We can have 4 bills. We can have 10 bills. But we think it's probably better to have it in one codified document, if not maybe in 2. You've got to address the issues that confront upstream investment in today's Nigeria in some sort of legislation. What we have right now is the 1969 law also. It's outdated, all right? Between then and now, we've moved, half of our current production, Nancy, comes from offshore. Those are the assets that we have on the PSC construct. How do you in a world where Ghana next door has oil, Angola has, Mozambique has, all right, Sudan, Somalia, all of them have oil, and all of them are competing for the same dollar that you are competing for? Why would they invest in your environment instead of those other environments? You have to make yourself competitive, and you have to demonstrate that competitiveness by means of codified law that tells people what their legitimate expectations will be when they invest in your environment. And frankly, until we get that in place, I'm not sure we're going to see major investment in our country. I mean, those players who are already here, we're bringing investments, to maintain assets, make sure things they operate in a safe way, to keep the lights on. But what you need to do new deep water, massive developments founded on FPSOs and high technology, you won't see until you have a PIB type legislation in place.
The question is, how much would we have lost, or how much have we lost as a result of the non-passage of the PIB bill? When I read the Nnaji report just a few months ago, they said we've lost not less than $200 billion because of the non-passage of the PIB bill. COVID-19 is presenting an opportunity, but is that opportunity adequate? Because some analysts have also said that we've lost the opportunity in passing the PIB bill when oil price was at over $100 a barrel.
Yeah, so there's merit in that proposition. So the big money in oil and gas upstream is Western capital. Mm-hmm. All right, you're not going to find $10 billion to do a Bonga Southwest investment or $16 billion to do an Egina investment in the banks you have in Nigeria or in any banks you have in Egypt or Cameroon or South Africa. Forget it. The big money will come from the international oil companies who are, for the most part, Western. All right. Now, to the extent that, again, like I said a few minutes ago, you operate in a very competitive environment. Money is not static. These guys do their investments in 5 to 10 year cycle plans. If you miss the window, then you've got to wait until they do their next round of major capex, and that's the problem we have. So the opportunity cost of the dollars invested already we have lost. The exact quantum of it is up for debate. Is it 300 billion? Is it 200 billion? I'm not sure. But what I do know is in the past 5 years, Nancy, there's been about $80 billion of investment, of final investment decisions taken in Africa. All right. 2014 to 2019, 80 billion. Only 2% of that amount came into Nigeria. So I suppose that answers your question. Now, luckily for us, early this year we got NLNG Train 7, sanctioned, and that's a pretty significant piece of investment. But beyond that, we haven't seen much. And again, it's because we haven't put in place the right structure to enable those investments. And Malam Elekere, current GMD, is driving the effort now to get the PIB in place. Hopefully, the original plan was to have it by Q3, but with COVID and all that, there's been, it probably slip a bit. But we should have a PIB before the end of this year. I'm hopeful. Mm.
That figure you actually gave is quite dismal for me. If we're getting just about 2% of $80 billion that came into Africa, that should be about $160 million, if I'm not mistaken, or so. Yeah, I think so. So that's quite a paltry sum for Nigeria, that is the biggest crude producer on the African continent. But that takes me to the next question, which is the impact of COVID-19 on the oil industry so far. Because when this pandemic started, when the first confirmed case came into Nigeria in February, I was part of those, or even before that. I've been shouting since December. It's like I was a lone voice in the wilderness. It's December. I said, guys, let's prepare. This thing is in China. It will spread. But whatever it is, the oil industry was in focus in terms of our revenue and all of that. Now, the chicken has come home to roost. Forget that oil price is trading at around $40 a barrel. The COVID-19 pandemic on Nigeria, they say, never waste a crisis. Will the oil industry, will you and your colleagues take advantage of that?
No, we certainly will. The crisis has had a major impact on not just Nigeria, but indeed the entire globe. Even the way we live as human beings has changed. If you need to go to a supermarket now, you've got to wear a mask. You can't, mingle with your friends like before. There are no Owambes in Lagos. So there's been, major adjustment to human existence. Now, in terms of Nigeria and our economy, the numbers. You know what the budget was based on originally. It was a price point of $57 or so. At the point we were selling oil at $13 a barrel. So there's going to be a significant decline in national revenues this year, which means, of course, that a lot of infrastructure type projects that government should have funded, they might not be able to fund, except if they're able to bridge that gap with debt, financing. Specifically to our industry, what this has taught us is that within a very short space of time, you can have all your plans. It was that thing they say in the military, that the best battle plan doesn't survive the first bullet shot fired in combat. All our lofty plans have all had to go to shreds because of the reality of what COVID has thrown to us. So are there lessons learned? Yes, there are, of course. And that's the first thing we need to do, of course, is to figure out a way to cut down costs significantly such that even in a low price regime, we remain in business and we remain competitive. In terms of the federation, the adjustments they've had to make to the spending profile just to keep the machinery of government rolling and to keep citizens, taken care of as best as possible. Now, to tie the conversation back to what we spoke about cost earlier, all right, you do realize, and I'm sure you know, many of the operators in the space now are indigenous players. So those ones have been particularly hammered because their capitalization from the very beginning wasn't that strong. They don't have access to the cheap money that our IOC partners have. So this constriction in price, added to the fact that many of them are heavily leveraged in terms of bank debt, poses another problem for us that we need to keep an eye on. Folks like you who are in the talking space will probably have to encourage them to look at consolidation, for example, like was done in the banking industry. So a lot has had to change, and a lot will continue to change in our space based on what COVID has brought to the table.
You are in charge of ventures and business development at the NNPC as the Chief Operating Officer. You were also the Chief Operating Officer upstream at the time. What innovations is the organization perhaps bringing in right now? Because you still see that all revenue gives us over 70%, but contribution to GDP is around 10% or so. So are there innovations that you're bringing?
Yeah, good question. But the last part there about what oil contributes to GDP is really important, and it's something that we should pay attention to as Nigerians. So oil gives us 95% of our foreign exchange revenues. It provides about 80% of the federal government's budget, but it's only 10% of GDP. So there's a disconnect right there. It means the oil industry hasn't had any real value-added impact as such on the larger economy. That's what it means, Nancy. All right, and that's because there are few elements of that value chain that are missing. And you well know, if you produce a raw commodity and you don't convert it to value-added use, you're leaving money on the table. So we produce our raw oil and we ship it out. We're not refining. Our petrochemical plants are not running. That's the essential reason why we are deadly focused on revamping the refineries, revamping our petrochemical plants, so that we can begin to capture more value out of this natural resource that we're endowed with. In the short term, all right, we are working heavily to sort of create new streams of income for the corporation. There are initiatives around alternative energy. So we have a renewable energy division. We're looking at solar, we're looking at biofuels and all that stuff. It's early stages yet, but they say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. We have engagements now with some of the major logistics companies in this country. Logistics takes up 30% of our costs. All right. So we're looking at setting up collaborations and partnerships with the major logistics boys, such that for every dollar we pay, some of it will come back to the country. Now, there are also some NNPC subsidiaries right now. Our engineering company, Netco in Lagos, our seismic company, IDSL in Benin, which I ran for 2 years as well. Those guys 4 or 5 years ago were very small. Today, they're booking significant revenues. Not too much, but IDSL does $100 million in revenue. Netco does about $150 million. In a world where you're scrambling for every small change, that becomes pretty significant. So yes, we are working towards putting new entities in place to diversify our revenue stream. But what we must do is fix our refineries, fix our petrochemical plants, so that we can extract more value from the raw crude resource that this country has been endowed with.
When it comes to oil or the NNPC thing, I think I need to do a series on you guys, a series of 1 week.
No. Listen, Nancy, the NNPC you have now under Melekiari is probably the most transparent NNPC you've had in a very, very long time. We publish our results every month. We're the only national oil company that does that. We opened our kimono, so we have nothing to hide.
Like the GMD would say that I can dance naked or so. I think he said in one of the webinars I attended with him. Yeah, dance naked and be transparent. But that's another issue for another day. Let's take this final question, which also dovetails to future of the oil industry. The NNPC GMD did tell me, I think in April when I interviewed him, that he said, Nancy, when I asked him the question of subsidy and deregulation under recovery, he said subsidy is gone zero forever. In fact, we have it on tape. Yeah. The PPPRA has deregulated prices, but it's not coming. What exactly is happening? And what position will it also leave the NNPC?
So, NNPC, right, is primarily charged to provide energy security for Nigeria. That's our primary mandate. Now, that mandate also then puts us in a situation where, irrespective of broader economic issues, cost, price, whatever, we must deliver basic energy to Nigerian people. So you don't have fuel lines anymore. You don't have issues around, ease of getting diesel and kerosene, because we've taken that mandate of energy security and we're running with it fully. The problem with that, though, is that you unwittingly create a situation where we have to do it at whatever cost. And that's where this whole angst about under recovery or subsidy comes from. Now, the right authority to speak on this, like you well know, is the PPRA. So you probably want to engage them in terms of how they do that. But as a policy matter, our position in NNPC is to liberalize the market and let market forces determine how things work.
Okay.
It's exactly what you have with telecommunications right now. It's what you have with banking. The efficient market hypothesis always works best for a consumer economy. You need government, of course, to provide some measure of regulation, but NNPC should not be the sole entity importing fuel into Nigeria. Let everybody, play in that space, and consumers will get the best price for the product they want.
Okay, I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. I'll continue to engage with all